I hope everyone had a really good Christmas or Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and everything else that's going on this time of year in regards to celebrating for the holidays and everything. I hope everyone had a really good time. Our Christmas went pretty good. We had my sister and her family over and my dad over, and that was really nice. That's kind of become the tradition now that my mom has a big enough house for that. So we had a good time. And I got some One Piece stuff. I got a little One Piece lamp that's one of Luffy's wanted posters. I think it's back from his one of the pre-time skip ones. It's the 300 million one. I had to do a double take when I was looking at it. I'm like, no, that's not 3 billion. So that's not quite his current bounty. I got some One Piece stickers and stuff like that from my mom. And the other two things that I got that I was very happy about, and they're semi-applicable because both of these characters appear in this video, appear in this episode, this chapter. I got Bonnie and Lilith. Egghead versions. Well, technically, Egghead is the only version of Lilith we have right now, but Egghead Bonnie. So I got them. I enjoyed that. I got some other stuff. I got fun socks from my mom and some other stuff as well. So things went pretty good. And I got movies from my sister. So that will help with, because I'm looking at the movies and one of them is an American Tail set for like all the Fievel movies for American Tail and Fievel Goes West and all that stuff. So that's all those 4 movies. And I'm like, well, I still need to review Fievel Goes West. So that helps. The other 2 movies, I might watch them, but I don't think I'm going to review them because I don't have as many memories of them. And then the other set that my sister got me was the set of all 14 Land Before Time movies. She got me these because I told her those would be good gift ideas for me, is those movies, those sets. And she's like, okay, so I got both of them. I'm like, yeah. List of things I have to watch. Also, list of things I must now review. Although I don't think I'll be reviewing all of the Land Before Time movies because there's a lot of them. So, time for the chapter. We weren't sure if we were going to have a chapter this week, but we do. So this is this is chapter 1135 called Camaraderie Cups, or in one of the other translations, Friendship Cups. Same idea. Camaraderie. And we are back on the Yamato cover page story this time. So it is the continuation of where we left off in the last one. The last cover page story part with Yamato had Yamato having to stand off against Hold'em, who currently had Tama held hostage. And unlike at the beginning of Wano, when Tama gets held hostage by Hold'em and has to get saved by Luffy, in this case, Tama saves herself, which I love. The caption is, I'm stronger than I was before. And it's Tama kicks Hold'em in the head, which is good. Kicks him in the head, makes him drop his sword, which I think hits his lion, his stomach lion. So, yay, Tama. It's like, and like, that's one of the things that I love about Tama is, you know, we see her grow just throughout like the whole like month-ish period that we see in Wano, from when Luffy meets her all the way through, at the festival and everything, when the Straw Hats are celebrating and everything after they've defeated Kaido. And then of course, she's going to be, she's been training with, Shinobu, so she, is physically training herself to get stronger and everything, so that's good for her. We also saw her at the beginning of the arc, or a little ways into the arc, we saw her kind of training with Kiku and Chopper on some different ninja moves, because of course, Tama wants to become a Kunoichi, a female ninja and everything, the same way that Shinobu is. That'll be a good, that's, we're seeing her improvement here. It's like at the beginning of the story, or at the beginning of Wano, she gets captured by Hold'em and she has to be saved by Luffy, with him, saving her and everything with his Red Hawk. And then now she's saving herself from Hold'em because, to be fair, she had a very good right to be terrified of Hold'em at the beginning of the story. He is this beast pirate who is like the leader of this little town and everything of the town. And he has pliers that he's trying to use to, activate her devil fruit power. And now Tama is to the point where she's like, I'm not scared of you, kick. So, great character development there, Tama. And we go into the chapters, pretty much starts right where we left off the last time. I'm assuming we see Bonnie and Chopper are sitting on top of one of the giant books and it's open. And we can kind of see the language. I don't think it's the poneglyph language, but I can't tell if it's just one of the made-up languages Oda has or what. I'm not sure from this angle. And kind of the little caption is like, the giant's well of wisdom. And it's like, Bonnie's like, the letters are huge. And Chopper's like, it's hard to make out because like it's so big because you're they're, for them, the books are so big now. And for the giants now, they're the right size. And we're getting an explanation now. And we kind of, it's kind of the explanation most people thought it was. It's like, there's a devil fruit involved here somehow that like, either it's part of the library or it's someone in the library that like when, something is brought into this library, when a book or something is brought into this library, it gets gigantified. We also find out that gets applied to the newspapers as well, that the news coups have, although the news coups don't deliver to Elbaf, so we'll get an explanation of that. So we get like this top-down view of seeing where we have Saul looking up, and he's looking up at the owl that's in this library, and he's like, this is, Bibliot is the library's master. So I'm assuming this is supposed to be a combination of like biblio, like biblioteca, as in like Spanish for library. Donde está la biblioteca? Where is the library? And a bibliophile is someone who really likes books and stuff like that. And then possibly a combination of the name Elliot, possibly. That might get a different, we'll see what the official translation ends up being for his name, but that's the owl, and he's like, that's the library's master. They say he's been here for hundreds of years. So we look up and, we saw this owl kind of a little bit at the end of the last chapter, and of course this is the owl library, so it makes sense that there's like an owl here at the very least, and now we're seeing, we get like the little, Oda title card for the owl, head librarian of the owl library, which makes sense. And Saul's just like, all we can say for sure about this owl is he gigantifies any book that enters his territory. And then we have Lilith kind of, popping in and saying, Saul is continuing. He's like, news coups don't come to Elbaf since it's not part of the world government. But sometimes the fishermen bring some tiny papers back here so we can read them. So that kind of explains how Saul and the other giants on Elbaf have kind of been somewhat informed about what's going on in the world. They don't know everything about what's going on in the world because, like, as Dorian Brogni mentioned earlier, when they got the news coups with, like, the new bounties for, like, Dorian Brogni and everything just after Egghead, as we saw with that, they're like, oh, no, we can't read these tiny little newspapers or whatever, and then Robert read it to them. So in this case, it is... it's basically said that, like, any, like, when the fishermen go out, or I'm assuming, like, Hyrudine and the others sometimes bring back papers. Other ones who go out will bring back newspapers whenever they come across them. And then I would assume that just like in our world, the newspapers have, like, dates on them and everything, and then they bring them back to Elbaf, and they bring them back here to the library, and then they get gigantified, so that way now the giants can read them. Which kind of answers one of the questions we kept having about, like, well, I mean, there have been humans on Elbaf, because, like, we saw Shanks on Elbaf, and we know in the past Mother Carmel and in the Lamb's house was on Elbaf, but that's not necessarily something where it explains everything for, like, how Elbaf has at least stayed somewhat apprised of what's been going on in the world. Because Wano was completely isolated. And the only reason that, like, Orochi kind of knew about Vegapunk in general is because of the fact that, like, Kaido and his crew were still out in the world, and they would get the newspapers, and then they would bring them back, and then Orochi would read the newspapers. That's also how Oden found out about Roger's death, is because, Oden, Orochi gave him the newspaper as a way to, like, torment Oden. or he thought he was giving it to him as a way to torment Odin. We also see similar things when it comes to Zo, because Zo is kind of an isolated country as well, because it's not associated with the world government, but we do know that they do get newspapers on Zo at times. So it's like that type of thing where it's like there's different levels of like isolation and being able to get information in and out. Probably not a lot of information got out of Elbaf that often. That wasn't just something from, something on the pirates or something like that. But we're going to find out that people from outside of the island, specifically the Celestial Dragons and the Gorosei, probably know about Loki. Now, we'll find out later on in the story how they know about that, but we'll learn that they at least know about him right now. We knew that they knew about him anyway because he has the special bounty, but like they, how they have information about Loki is a little bit left up for debate. How they know about him is left up for debate, but they do know about him. And Lilith jumps in here and she's like, oh, he must have eaten the rear fruit and became a nurturing owl. So the the translation I saw of this was the Iku no Mi Iku. And it's rear, so I'm assuming that's supposed to be like rearing a child, or like, that type of thing. Like, and she says like a nurturing owl. So it's like the owl ate this devil fruit, and now the owl can like gigantify these books. Because the owl is huge compared to the Straw Hats that we see in here, so it definitely needs to make the books bigger so it can read them. And then because of its domain, or its territory, as Saul said, within the owl library, they are now able to use his power, Biliot's power, to be able to make the books and newspapers and such much bigger while they're in the library. I would assume if you take the regular books out of the library, they would shrink back down to their normal size, is what I would assume once they're outside of his, area of effect. And Lilith continues, she's like, to think even inorganic things can grow with his power. So I'm assuming in regards to like part of the thing for like rearing, because like we've seen, we haven't really seen any devil fruits that can manipulate the size of something necessarily outside of their own person. We know that there is San Juan Wolf, who has like the giant fruit or whatever that makes him even bigger. Even though he's already a giant, he just gets even bigger. But that only affects himself. He can't like transfer that power and make, Blackbeard bigger or make this weapon bigger or something like that. Whereas there's also non-canon Lillian Stomach, who has had the mini no Mi that allows her to, shrink down to like either, small enough to fit in like the size of like a bottle for us, or can make herself like human sized or her normal giant size, depending on what size she wants to go to. So there's like, we've seen ones that can do that type of a thing, but we haven't really seen any that seem to be able to make other things big. And the way Lilith describes this seems to be inorganic things can grow with his power. So I'm assuming this power is generally applied to like maybe making plants grow, food grow, maybe making, like we saw all of that giant fruit that that Shanks and his crew were eating when they were at the tavern, at the bar, at the port bar, when they were talking with Dorian Bragi and everything. And that the bar will get mentioned in a little bit. But we saw all that giant food there, so it's like that food was gigantic. So maybe not only is the owl's area of effect part of the library, maybe in the past there was someone else who had awakened this devil fruit, and that then applied it to Elbaf itself to grow this tree, grow the Adamwood tree that it is, grow the Yggdrasil, to make it as big as it is now, or like give it that chance to grow that big. And then it just like applied, and then like that was like maybe an awakened user of it, and that's why everything on Elbaf is so big. Maybe that's something that is affecting the giants as well, that has affected them for so many generations. That might be one of the things that is might be something that applies to the Louis Arnault quote from Bragman that we got when they first got to Elbaf. So there's a possibility that it could connect back to that for like why everything is so big here. But because you're exposed to it for so long, Because like the original ones were exposed to it so long, it's in their DNA, it's in their lineage factor. So we'll see what goes on with that. And it's a perfect ability for a kingdom of giants. And we see, Saul, and like we see these like, tables there that are just round wooden tables and chairs in the library. And like Robin and Chopper are like sitting at the table with Saul, and like Lilith and Bonnie Lilith is flying around on her Dom shoes in the library, and then Bonnie is like, she's somehow, I think it's Bonnie that's over like off to the side on like part of the staircase on the railing, so she's just having fun, which is fair, because yeah, Chopper and Robin are sitting and talking with Saul. And Saul is asking Robin, feeling nostalgic, and she's like, yeah, because like for Robin, she's thinking back to when she was a kid, when she would go into the Library of O'Hara and everything, where she met Clover and all the archaeologists, and how that was like kind of like this one safe space on the island that she could go to where she wasn't ridiculed. So of course she's feeling very nostalgic. And we see one of the book that Robin is currently sitting on is just a history of, and then we can't make out the other word because her leg is sitting over it. It might be a history of Elbath. It might be another history. We'll find out. And Chopper is just like, I hope they have medical books here. And Robin's like, I know we had a few, but most of it was archaeological and historical works, which makes sense. We know that the One Piece medical world, at least at times, doesn't seem to be as far behind our own as we've thought it was, because like we've seen the medical technology that was on like the Polar Tang, that Law's sub, when he was treating Luffy. We know that there's all of the Ishin 20 and Kureha and Chopper and everything that were from Drum Island and all of their medical knowledge. We saw in Lot's flashback when Corazon was taking him around the North Blue, trying to find, a doctor who would treat Law for the Amber Lead disease, trying to, taking him to all these hospitals, and like we saw these like fairly modern looking hospitals and everything. So the world government doesn't seem like they've necessarily erased a lot of medical knowledge. Now, places like the East Blue, particularly the more remote areas of it, like, Syrup Village and everything, because like Banshina died because of whatever it was that she was sick with, and had there been a proper doctor around or someone who was a bit more worldly than just one of them that was trained in the East Blue, maybe she would have been able to be healed. Like if Kureha had come across Banshina, she would have been able to figure out exactly what was wrong with her and been like, drink this 3 times a day for a week and you'll be fine, or whatever the case may be. And, and Banshina would have been fine if that was the case. But that's not the case. So I think the world government probably was a little more worried about trying to hide the archaeological and historical records when it came to the Void Century and stuff like that, but have kind of allowed some of the medical technology to still be able to like evolve and everything. Plus there's Vegapunk, so he's probably developed a lot of that as well. And Saul says, we got some medical books native to Elbath too. And Chopper's like, wow, I can't wait to read them, because Chopper, of course, just loves learning more and more about medical technology and medical knowledge and everything. And Saul's like, although those books were always large, so they can't be shrunken down. And Chopper's like, what? So that gives us some of the limitations of the fruit. If it was something that was already normally giant-sized, the owl's power isn't going to make it shrink down if it goes outside. Then you would need someone else who has that ability. So maybe they have something that like Chopper can like stand on or something while he's reading, so he can still read everything that's on the pages for him and Robin or something like that. Then we cut back outside and we cut back over to the Walrus School, where we now see that I think they're still outside because they're on this giant swing, and there's 2 of the kids just hanging onto the swing, and they are terrified. And Luffy is, of course, making the swing really high, back and forth, which, swinging high for us is, 10 feet off the ground, depending on, 8 to 10 feet off the ground, depending on the size of the swing set. Multiply that by giant size. They are way up in the air. Luffy's swinging the swing. The two little kid giants are just terrified. And Usopp is terrified as well. Luffy is just like, woohoo! And the other ones are like, make it stop. And they're just like so scared. And Luffy's like, this giant swing is the best. And then we cut to Nami has beaten up both Luffy and Usopp. And Luffy's like, we're very sorry, because he's got like all the welts and everything on him. And Nami's like, can't you see that you're scaring them? And then Usopp's like, hey, I wanted to stop too, because she beat up Usopp as well, which is just funny. And then we see one of the little kid giants, or the two of them, run over toward Gerd, and of course they're pulling a Momonosuke whenever he would run over to Nami or Robin to try to get affection from them and shove his face in their chest. And they're like running over to Gerd, and they're just like, oh, it was so scary, Miss Gerd. And she's like, oh, you poor thing. And Luffy's like, hey, it's shameful for a warrior to cry. Back off, Luffy. And first of all, it's not shameful for a warrior to cry. I can assure you of that. Jinbei is a warrior. We have seen him cry. We have seen, it is not shameful for a warrior to cry. When Dory or Bragi had thought the other one had been killed on Elbath, or killed back on Little Garden, they were sad because their friend had died, but, it wasn't quite the same thing. But, so it was like, it's not wrong for a warrior to cry. And Sanji's like, hey, back off, Luffy. These kids were raised with nothing but love and kindness. And then he looks over, which, to be fair, the kids are being raised with love and kindness. That's not to say that the warrior generations of Elbath were not raised with love and kindness. It's not saying that Hyrule and Gerd were not raised with love and kindness. It's just these kids are being much more focused on the knowledge aspect of things as opposed to the warrior aspect of things, which is not a bad thing. And you can have like a good mix of both. Ripley seems to be a good mix of both. She is both a warrior and she is the biologist. And Gerd is, of course, a warrior, but she is also a doctor. So there's good mixes of things. And we kind of see that a lot in the Straw Hats, too. Like, Robin is, like, the smartest by far of all of the Straw Hats. And she is also really, really strong with her devil fruit and everything. And, Chopper is... He's book smart, not so much street smart, but he's also strong. Not as strong as like some of the other Straw Hats, but he's still strong. So it's like you can have a good balance between being smart and being strong. There's nothing that says you can't be both. But Sanji looks over and he sees the kid, and the kid's given that same little perverted gremlin look that Momonosuke would give whenever he would, jump at Robin and Nami and hide in their chest. And everything. And Sanji's like, come on, is this universal brat behavior now? So we get like another shot of the school and seeing all of these other, like, there's different swings around it, and we're seeing other little levels within the school. It looks like most of the classroom space kind of is outside, so they probably have like a lot of outside and outdoor classes. Weather permitting, if it's like really, really rainy or windy or, snowy or something like that, depending on how the weather systems work on Elbath, they probably are inside at various points in time, depending on stuff. And they probably have ways to like close the buildings so that way they're keeping out any of the bad weather. But Luffy's like, this is a bit of a letdown, Usopp. And Usopp's like, yeah, but it's not like a peaceful Elbath is a bad thing. True. And I believe it was, I don't remember who pointed it out in their review. I don't remember if it was Tekking or if it was Liam on Grand Line Review, but I remember one of them had pointed out the fact that, like, in history, the, Vikings in our world were these, portrayed as these ruthless, bloodthirsty killers by a good chunk of Europe and other areas. And then nowadays, like, all of those Scandinavian countries are pretty dang peaceful places to live and have like some of the highest, peace, not involved in a lot of wars, if any, stuff like that. So it's just like things change. One generation goes against, it is common knowledge that a lot of the times different generations will, the next generation will rebel a bit against the older generation and stuff like that. Where it was, lots of, that happens in a lot of places around the world. So no, a peaceful Elbaf is not a bad thing, but it just depends on, like, there's a good balance there. And then we have, there you are, Straw Hat, and we see the sword come down right next to where Luffy and Usopp were. And Luffy, of course, senses it with his observation haki, I'm sure, and jumps out of the way, and he probably pushes Usopp out of the way. And he's like, so much for peaceful, and he looks over, and we see that it's Colin, the boy back from the tavern, from the bar, and everything with Shanks and everything, and he's shown up, and he's got his little play wooden sword. He's like, you're wide open, and he's, swinging a sword at Luffy, and he swings it, and Luffy, I don't know if Luffy has his hand out and he's just, activating his Ryuo just enough to, like, block it or whatever, or he just has, like, Luffy has enough control over his Ryuo now that, like, Colin's swinging the sword at him. It's like, it's a wooden sword and it just snaps. And then Luffy jumps and he activates a Gear 3rd Gum Gum Elephant Gun and he smashes it down right at where Colin was, and Colin dodges. And then Usopp is like, don't ever do it, you dummy. Because he's like, he doesn't want Luffy to hurt the kid. And Luffy's like, I didn't even hit him. And Usopp's like, that's not the point. And he's like, we're going to get in trouble. And then Luffy is like looking over at Colin and he's like, she. It's good to know that, no, not everyone around here is spineless. I really hope that, okay, Luffy himself is not the biggest fan of, like, knowledge. He respects the fact that Robin is smart and that history and stuff like that mean a lot to her. And that those skills can be useful to him. And same thing with Nami, with as smart as she is. Same thing with, like, Frankie and his shipwright knowledge, and Chopper and his ability to, all of his doctor knowledge and everything. Chopper's doing his doctor thing. And all of that stuff. But Luffy, for what he values in himself, is his courage and is his fighting ability. There's lots of fanfics out there where it's like, well, what if Luffy was actually a genius? And I'm like, well, technically, when it comes to, like, different types of fighting and stuff like that, he is kind of a genius. When it comes to book smarts and things like that, no, he's not. So it's like there's that balance there. But I don't know if I want spineless to be the right word when this is translated when the official translation comes out. I don't know if I quite want spineless to be the word, but we'll see. And we see a bunch of the other little Viking kids, a bunch of the girls, and they're like, oh, that Luffy is a meanie. I hate violence. And Colin's like, oh, that's so cool. You're an emperor, all right. Because he's just, like, looking at Luffy, and he's just like, yay. And, like, all the other kids are like, you're just as bad, Colin. Our resident delinquent is here. Why do you have to pull these stunts and ditch school? And Colin shouting, shut up. I hate weaklings like you. And, they're like, he's such a brute. So we're getting this dynamic here where Colin, as we saw at the beginning when we saw him first introduced alongside Shanks at the bar, with him wanting to go with Shanks and everything, Colin very much seems to fall into the wanting to be a warrior in regards to being an Elbaf giant. And we're going to kind of find out why in a minute. Where part of that comes from, which is, again, not a bad thing if he wants to become a warrior, but that doesn't mean that he shouldn't respect that other people don't want to be a fighter. Same thing with Luffy. Luffy needs to know that as well. And, the other kids need to understand that they value peace and they value, knowledge and everything like that, but it's not a bad thing for Colin to want to learn how to fight. To be fair, I don't know where I would fall in this, system if I had been, if I was a giant on Elbaf and I was part of this generation where it's like, oh, well, maybe I would want to be a warrior, but maybe I also want to learn about, like, I really like art, so maybe I want to learn about, like, art history or something like that, or architecture or something along those lines. Maybe there's some commonality in there. Maybe there's like, well, I want to learn how to do this, and then, like, I would name a bunch of my attacks after different types of, like, art. That would be fun. Not like the art devil fruit, but like what Giola has. Although that would be an interesting one to have. I think I would actually enjoy that one. For like what I can envision as art. I hope it would be better than what Giola has, than what she envisions. But so there's like that type of dichotomy going on here between Colin is like this delinquent. He's kind of this little bit of an outcast amongst the other kids because he really wants to like be a warrior and he wants there to be like a war or something. I'm like, kid, you are like what, 8 years old or whatever. You are not going to be fighting in any war. And yeah, there is this kind of thing that we see happen a lot in One Piece where there's like sometimes a little kid gets paired up with the Straw Hats. In Short Village, like I mentioned earlier, there's like the 3 little veggie pirates that are Usopp's friends. And you know, they want to help try to protect Kaya and everything, and they do help her. And like we've kind of seen them grow up a little bit in the the flash forward stuff that we've seen with like after the 2-year time skip, and then there's other stuff where in some of the different fillers there's been like a kid that gets paired up with the Straw Hats. Like there's Apis in the Warship Island arc, and then some of the other movies have had like this kid that ends up getting helped by the Straw Hats in some shape or form. In Skypiea, there's Apis that ends up being around the Straw Hats. To be fair, she's not necessarily there because she wanted to be part of the battles. She ended up there via reasons that were kind of outside of her control. And then you have like just like other times throughout One Piece where we've had like these other little kids that end up being around the Straw Hats. But it's sometimes they're there because they want to go on an adventure. Other times they're there because they get dragged along on the adventure outside of their own choosing. Like all the kids on Punk Hazard. They didn't necessarily choose to be put into that type of a situation. But then we see like Moda and some of the other ones kind of step up to help. Specifically Moda, but you get it. And then there's other ones like in there was Momonosuke and all of that stuff as well through all of Punk Hazard. And then there's not really any little kids that are around the Straw Hats during Dressrosa, and not necessarily in Zou either, except for Momonosuke. And then throughout Wano, you have Momonosuke, you have Tama, you have Toko. All of them are around the Straw Hats at various points in time and kind of get dragged along on this adventure. Momonosuke, of course, because he is the future of the Kozuki clan, he wants to be a part of this. Same thing with Tama. She is very much choosing to go to Onigashima and use her Dango ability to help the Straw Hats and help the rebellion. They are both choosing this. Toko doesn't choose to be attacked by Orochi. She does not choose to then have her father die. She, for Yasue and everything. And, so we have a lot of that. And Toko isn't even involved in the final battle. She's back on mainland Wano in the Flower Capital with Sukeyake for the Fire Festival and everything. And that's where she is during that part of it. She's not involved in the battle at all. Because she doesn't want to be a fighter. Kind of the way that Hiyori doesn't necessarily want to be a fighter, but she will do what she has to help protect herself and protect her country. So we'll see where Colin tends to land in this, where he lands in the lineup of like, okay, how annoying is this kid around the Straw Hats? And then we have Ripley show up, and she's like, Colin, don't cause a scene. But that was a solid first strike. And he's like, he, Mom! Mato-san made your favorite. So, we got 2 things here. Colin's mom is Ripley. Awesome. And Mato is some variation of the name of the blonde giantess that we were calling like Giant Makino. Oda apparently couldn't come up with another letter to use as the first part of this woman's name than Mato instead of Makino. Whatever. But so we get a name on her. So Colin's delivering the basket of food that he brought with him and everything. And Sanji is behind them, kind of having a little bit of an existential crisis at the moment. Because he's like, wait, your mom is Ripley-chan? At least you're... No, it's Luffy that's saying it. Sanji is also having a bit of a mental breakdown. But Luffy, I believe, is the one saying, wait, your mom is Ripley-chan? At least you're teaching your son the old ways. And it's just like, aren't you going to try to tell him to apologize for that sneak attack? And then Colin continues and he's like, did you know my father's a human too? It's just like, how the heck would we know that? It's not like that was part of your intro box earlier. And the Straw Hats can't even read the intro boxes to begin with. Other reason, it's not like it's all that obvious. It's not like you're like half the size of the other giant children. So it's like, it's not like it's an obvious thing. To be fair, we have had mentions to, like, we know that there's the Buccaneer race that is Kuma's race that has giant blood in them. So they're probably a result of various generations of, like, giants and humans and, you know, part giants, part humans, you know, interbreeding and everything. And we have seen, like, a, you know, courtship to a degree of a giant and a human. That was Loki and Lola way back. We got, like, a hint of that with Lola's backstory and with Loki. We know that there are giants that have bred with fishmen, fishmen and merfolk, and those result in half fishmen, half giants called Wutons, I think is what they're called. So there's like a combination there. But we haven't really had any necessarily. I mean, like, there's the theory that, like, Big Mom and you know, there's, like, the ancient giants race that, you know, kind of, like, you know, that, like, Kaido and Yamato might be connected to. And then there's the whole thought of, you know, Big Mom and Whitebeard and, like, all these other, like, much bigger than normal humans may have, like, giant blood in them from, like, several generations back. It just hasn't shown up that much in the genetics for a while. And it only just surfaced in this child or something. Like what we see with Big Mom, who'll get mentioned in a little bit later in the chapter. So Colin's like, yeah, did you know my father's a human too? And they're like, what? And Ripley's off in the background and she's like, ooh, lingonberries. I'm so happy, because she's just like so happy to eat her, get her favorites. And then Colin's like, yeah, he used to be a pirate and he didn't fear anyone, not even the warriors of Elbaf. And Sanji is just kind of like, your dad's human, is like what's happening with him, because Sanji's just trying to figure out the math there for Ripley and a human. Okay. To be fair, we also know that a Big Mom has been with a Tontada, so figure that one out. Figure out whatever variation of sexual joke you want to put in here. And Ripley says, she's like, my husband's much younger than me. Our marriage is more informal because of that age gap. He always said it'd be weird to make it official, since he'd be the only one to ever grow old. And so this is obviously this kind of reference to the fact that, like, giants can kind of seem to live 3 to possibly 3.5 times to 4 times as long as a human can. And, I mean, I can understand where that's coming from, because it's like, for Ripley, it's like, we don't quite know how old Ripley is. She might be in her 60s or her 50s. But, you know, her husband might also be in his, like, 40s, but he looks older than her because of the way that humans age compared to how giants age. I'm going to go through a little bit of probably varying scenarios that are going to be brought up in regards to who Colin's father is. People are going to say it's Shanks. I don't think it's Shanks. Colin probably would have been calling Shanks by calling him Dad or something like that if that was the case. So I don't think it's Shanks. I don't think it's anybody associated with Shanks' crew. They also said he's a former pirate. He used to be a pirate. That's going to draw people to the fact that there's the whole theory that the guy in the Casa hat and everything that we keep seeing here on Elbaf is Shiki, and people are going to say that maybe Shiki is Colin's father. Possibly. That is a possibility. And there's also the whole thing where Colin's father could just be a human that we either may never meet or is a human who we just haven't met yet. And it's not really that big of a deal who his father is. Or it could be a big deal. It could be a former member of Rox's crew. We'll throw that one out there as well. Silver Axe or whatever. We know it's not Captain John. He'd been dead for a long time. So it's not Captain John. Shiki is the possibility out of that as well. Again, I don't know. It's not Kaido. That would be brought up. A bunch of that type of stuff. We'll see who it ends up being. Could be a former member of, like, you know, Whitebeard's crew or something. We don't know the kind of relationship that Whitebeard had with the Giants before Shanks became an emperor and had, like, some type of a connection to Elbath. We'll just have to wait and see. Some people might jump to, a member of, you know, Roger's crew is a possibility as well. That is a possibility. I think in the anime, Colin has pink hair, is I think what he was given for his coloring there. So, you know, you could look at Roger's crew and see if there's anybody that has pink hair and maybe narrow it down to maybe one of them. Again, we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But Sanji, I'm assuming, is the one. Is he for real in regard to, like, why wouldn't someone want to marry you? Or why would... So it's like, basically it's described as, like, Ripley and her husband have, like, a common law marriage for, like, you've lived together for so long that you're basically married anyway. You know, that you're just basically married anyway. And then we have it that, like, the a bunch of them go to the library now because, like, okay, Luffy's not the biggest person when it comes to libraries, biggest interest in them. I still think Luffy would want to go see the inside of this giant effing library. I still think Luffy would be interested in that because he even says here, even the library here is awesome, which is great. It's like these books are huge, which I love the fact that Luffy is at least somewhat impressed by that he's happy about that. Again, it's not as much of Luffy's like, oh my god, these books look awesome, let's read them. It's, oh my god, this place is really cool looking. There's a giant owl. These books are huge. Robin and Chopper would probably love this place. Some of the other ones in my crew would probably like this too. I wonder if there's any stories about battles in here. Would, like, be something that would be going through Luffy's mind. So Robin, they get back inside, get to the library, and they're talking, and Robin's like, Luffy, I want to talk to Saul a little longer. I'll meet you at the feast later. And Saul's like, there, she. Those guys party for 3 days straight, so we'll have plenty of time. And Chopper's like, I'm starving too. And Luffy's like, got it. And Lilith and Bonnie kind of pipe up, and Lilith is like, don't worry about me either. I'm going to hang around and get my resident permit. And Bonnie's like, me too. So this is kind of like figuring up the Bonnie and Lilith stuff with, like, being like, okay, you know, Lilith, of course, wants to stay on Elbath because she wants to try to set up all of her equipment so she can try to wake up the other Vegapunk clone and maybe try to see what she can fix on Kuma. We'll see how that goes. Bonnie, of course, wants to stay with her father, plus she had a good relationship with Vegapunk at the end, or for the majority of the relationship was pretty good. So, depending on how much of, like, the original Vegapunk's memory this clone Vegapunk has, he may want to try to, you know, protect Bonnie as well. Make it up to her for everything that happened as much as he could with everything that happened with Kuma. Again, don't know how much of a, you know, stuff is going to be able to get done with Kuma. We'll see. I don't know. And then Frankie pipes up and he's like, ow, I also got some business around here. This entire kingdom is on an Adam tree. That's the same kind of wood which the Sunny is made of. So that's, you know, kind of the reminder to anyone who hadn't picked up on that, specifically to Luffy and such, that the treasure tree Adam is, of course, where, you know, Frankie got the wood for the Sunny. You know, that he bought on the black market with the money that they stole from the Straw Hats and everything. Way back at Water 7, at the beginning of Water 7, and now Frankie is like, yeah, this is that same type of tree. Now, Saul is going to say here in a second that, like, yeah, there are a few Adam trees around the world, but the age of this one is off the charts, or it's like incomprehensible is another translation I saw. which makes sense given the size of this tree. Plus, not saying that they couldn't find a way to smuggle like Adam wood out of Elbath, but that would seem like a bit more of, bit more of a harder thing to do. And it could be that there's, as there is other trees, as they said, there's other trees around the world that they could have gotten the wood from. So maybe the wood from the Sunny isn't specifically from Elbath itself, it's from another Adam wood tree somewhere else in the world. Either one is cool. It still is, it's the same species of tree, so that's still pretty cool. And Frankie continues with, I want to learn more about the treasure tree while we're here. Which, again, makes perfect sense for Frankie. That was stuff that he was interested in a long time in regards to the Adam wood to build the ship. And, of course, because, Tom had used that Adam wood to build the Oro Jackson and everything. Also, if anything, it would be interesting if the Giants would allow Frankie to use any of the wood, to use wood from Elbath to make any repairs to the Sunny. Because I think the Sunny got a little bit of damage during the skirmish on Egghead. I also know that, like, Frankie has, like, backup Adam wood in the Sunny. He has it like in part of the hull or something somewhere in the storage area. They have extra Adam wood because he's used it before. So you have to like patch up stuff around the Sunny at times, or if you had to do any remodeling. So I think it would make sense if like he's like, oh well, while I'm here, would it be possible for me to get a little bit more? I'm kind of running low with the different repairs I've had to do to the Sunny over the on our trip. So would it be possible for me to get some more Adam wood or something? If possible, that would be nice. If not, I understand. This is your home and your tree. I think they would be able to be like, yeah, we can get you some of the chunks that have fallen off and you can use that. And I think that would be fine. Some of the bark and stuff like that. And let Frankie use that. So that'd be good. So Luffy he's like, no worries. We'll just go on ahead. I got to eat before I starve. I'm at my limit. I'm like, oh, Luffy, I love you. And Gerd kind of like makes some sense. She's like, I've got something for all of you. And they're like, what is it, Gerd? And we get like this nice little double page spread. And it's the rest of the other Straw Hats. It's Brooke, it's Robin, Frankie, Brooke, and Jinbei getting put into Elbath clothes. So we're not going to get to see, we're not seeing them in these other little clothes that they've had. I did like Frankie's outfit at the beginning of the arc and everything with the cowboy hat. I'm hoping he still keeps some of that. I think he like added some of it onto his outfit, maybe, because it looks like he's still maybe wearing a similar coat. Maybe, but they're all now in like Elbath gear. And Brooke's like, woohoo, this is excellent. I look more like a warrior now, don't I? And Frankie's like, damn straight, Brooke, I'm feeling stronger already. Say, how come you've got clothes our size? And we see Gerd behind him, and she's just like, because like we know that Gerd really likes humans, and she's like, I like making human clothes for fun, but that's all it is, I swear. She's like, oh, they're so cute. I'm glad you like them. So she's just like so happy, and like Robin is just like, they're wonderful, thanks, Gerd. So Brooke and Jinbei and Frankie kind of have like the typical kind of, Elbath with like the big capes and the helmets and everything. Robin doesn't have a cape. She's kind of got like the one patch of her skirt or her, pants or whatever is longer than the others, kind of the way that like Gerd's is right now. And stuff. Jinbei's belt buckle looks like it has like a snake or a dragon on it, which is kind of cool looking. And Jinbei's like, it's surprisingly comfortable as he's trying it on. So that's nice. So yeah, we know that Gerd likes humans. Technically, something very similar happened with Road, with like he made the clothes that the other Straw Hats are currently wearing, and basically stated that he had to strip them to put them on, which is just disturbing. In this case, I don't think Gerd would have done that. She's not that type of creepy. She's just more oh, they're so cute. And yes, I have clothes for you. Yes, I make clothes for humans. And it's just a hobby. That's all it is. I don't do anything else with it, I swear. And I mean, like, it's not like there haven't been other humans that have visited Elbath. I'm sure Gerd has met Shanks at some point in time while he's been on Elbath, and maybe went through and, like, took measurements from his crew to make clothes for them that are, like, Elbath type clothes. There's, the Ripley's husband got mentioned. So there's a possibility there that maybe Gerd, like, took measurements of him to make clothes for him. Maybe there's other humans, and like Lilith mentioned, like a resident card or something like that, like a resident permit, because it's like, outsiders are not necessarily allowed in Elbath. The Straw Hats are being let in for very specific reasons. They are allies of the Giants, they're allies of Dorian Bragi, Oimo Kashi, Hyrudine and his group. That's going to get referenced in a moment when they get back to the party. So it's like, they have they're friends with them. So it's not like they were intruding on the island. They weren't trying to sneak onto the island. They were being brought there. They were being welcomed. And Lilith and Bonnie were with them. So I'm assuming that they're going to be like given some type of like, yeah, it's fine that you stay here. You guys were, you're connected to Vegapunk and you're connected to the Straw Hats. So it's fine if you want to stay here. So I think that's probably going to be what happens there. From there, we see them get back onto the Skval or whatever it is, and Colin goes with them. So I think it's Robin, Chopper, and maybe Frankie. Maybe Jinbei stays there as well in the library. I'm not sure. But they get a bunch of the other ones with Gerd and Colin get back on the ship, and they're just, we'll see you later and everything. We'll meet you guys down at the village and everything. And they head there. Oh, in case any of you were wondering, Brenda was very well behaved on Christmas. She was very good on Christmas. She was very good. And she got a new rope toy, so she's happy too. She was very good on Christmas. So, cutting back to the castle, which we kind of get a name that's called the Quest Castle near the western village. So this is a castle that had like the black lightning bolt go through it, and the two Shanks's twin and the female God's Knight or whatever that's there. And we hear these other giants that are like guards of the castle, and they show up and are just like, "What are you twerps doing here? We guard this. We guards can't let you." Roam free here, free, It's just like, are you part of the Straw Hat crew? What business do you have in this country? It's rapid fire questions for him. And the one who's the one with like the bandaged face, that's probably female in all honesty, just given how they're drawn, or they're going to be the very Bishonen, effeminate, kind of like Cavendish is drawn in One Piece. Might be like that type of a character. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But she's like, we're looking for the one called Loki. And one of the giants laughs, and he's just like, Loki? Why would you want to see that criminal? And the other guard is just like, our country suffered greatly because of him. He's the Kingslayer, fiend who killed our beloved King Harold. That's why this castle is so empty. So yeah, we get much more of a look at this castle, that it's, besides the fact that it seems to have been destroyed, it also seems to have fallen into a bit of disrepair. Now, Loki seems to have been chained up for a while. I think it's stated that he was chained up for about 6 years or so. And it could have been like he killed his father, and then stuff happened, and Shanks was involved in that, and helped trap Loki on Elbath, helped tie him up. So there's that. So it's like, and they're like, why? That's why the castle's so empty, because like the king's dead, and they don't currently have a king. So, and Hyrudine's clearly not living in the castle, and Loki doesn't need it because he's tied up to a tree. And they may just not have, decided to fix it up yet, because it looks like there was like a battle that happened here with like certain parts of it that looked very damaged. And the girl's like, then will you tell me where he is? And there's like, we can't do that on the off chance he uses you to escape somehow. And she's like, so you won't tell me? And they're like, sorry, this was a waste of time after all. And she just goes, she like something happens and she seems to unleash some type of a force or something that seems to latch onto or attack one of the giants, because the much more burly looking one seems to attack him. And like, we don't see what it is. So this might be a type of hockey, or it might be something to do with just like maybe she has a devil fruit and it's affecting him that way or something. I don't know. Maybe she's just really fast with her weapons and it managed to pierce him without us even seeing it. Again, don't know. And he like starts going like, no, this has to be some sort of joke. And he's like being grabbed by something, and he like seems like he drops to the ground and he's just in pain. And the other giant is just baffled by this. And the other one is just like, it hurts. And the other giant is like, what's wrong? And the one that's, being attacked is like, it hurts. Ah. And the other one keeps calling his name Bog, B-O-G. So that's I guess this guy's name. And he's fallen to the ground and is just in a lot of pain. So I don't know what this woman did. I had the thought that maybe it's something to do with like acupressure or something, that like maybe, because like we know that there's like the string fruit that Doflamingo has, and then Leo has the stitch fruit. Maybe she has something like a needle type fruit or something, and she's just very good with her needles at being able to find like all of the right pressure points to activate all of this pain, even on a giant. Maybe. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see what else she's capable of later. But she's like, this is what happens when you're too rude and prideful. I wasn't really asking before. This time I'm ordering you to tell me. And the other one is still just like groaning in pain. And then the one who's not rolling on the ground in pain is just like, what is going on? Because he is baffled by this, which is fair. I would be too. We cut back down to the western village of Elbath. And this is where like part of the crew have now arrived at the party. And, it's just like, we've come a long way from the East Blue. And it's just like, yeah, we finally made it. Hey, the Straw Hats are back. So they're just all happy. Like Luffy and Usopp are so happy. And they're just like, we've always dreamed of coming to the country of giants, the homeland of the world's greatest warriors. And Dory and Bragi are, it's just like, we've been expecting you. After all, you small folk defended our pride, because like they helped back on Little Garden, fight against, help against Mr. 2 or Mr. 3 and everything with Galdino. And then we have Voimo and Caution. It's just like, you freed us after we were fooled in regards to like Usopp as Sniper King and everything, helping them, figure out that they were being tricked and in a lobby and everything. And then we have Hyrule, and it's just like, you saved me from being erased. Which is, of course, calling back to Dressrosa, where, where Hyrule had been turned into the toy, and because of Usopp's actions, they were saved. That was reversed from Sugar, and then, of course, Luffy helped them and everything, defeating Doflamingo and everything. And it's just like, all of us would like to officially welcome you to Elbath. And we see Jinbei. Zoro's already in the background getting a giant thing of sake, I'm sure. Usopp, Luffy, Sanji, Brook, and Nami. So that means Frankie, Robin, and Chopper, along with Lilith and Bonnie, are still back up at the library. So the library may also be like where they kind of take care of any like official documents and stuff like that. The library in school might be where they take care of like any official types of documents or stuff like that need to be filled out for like that residence permit or something. And so it's just like all of them are so happy and so excited. And they're like, we may be small, but they aren't looking down on us. And that's Usopp. And like Luffy's just like, here's to the great, or they're, Luffy's just laughing and eating, and the giants are like, here's to the great pirate Straw Hat Luffy, one of the 4 emperors. And they're just like, and to his crew that took down those monsters, Kaido and Big Mom at Wano, and like they're all just happy, and Nami's like covering her ears because it's so loud, which is funny. And they're just, we get like this cut back shot where we have like all of these giants, and like the Straw Hats are like on top of this table that's like just laden with food, and all the giants are lifting up their mugs and everything, and they're just like so happy and just like raising the toast and everything. Raise your camaraderie cups for the Straw Hat crew. Woo! Cheers! Or just like, this is gonna be great to see in the anime. When this gets animated, that's just going to be beautiful. And then we cut to the last 2 pages of the chapter. First panels of that is we see one of those other sky boats showing up, and on it is a very large giant. This is Jarl Mountain Beard. He's being brought here by another giant so he can be at the party to meet the Straw Hats. And he's like, oh, they're really living it up. It seems the Straw Hats have arrived, or have returned. And now Luffy is looking up at Stanson, and he's like, aren't you that giant that was caught at Sabaody? So this is, of course, we get like a little summary thing by Oda that's just like a refresher on Stanson, a childhood friend of Hirudin that was captured while napping and brought to be sold at the human auction house. Due to another incident, aka Luffy punching Charlos, the Straw Hat crew caused a commotion that allowed him to go free. So this is calling back to, of course, the whole incident where Luffy punched Charlos because they were trying to save Kami, and then of course Stanton is there already, and he'd met Rayleigh, and then Stanton helps a bunch of the other former slaves who are released, helps them get off the island, get them away from Sabaody and everything. So supposedly all of those other ones are hopefully safe. Maybe he brought them back to Elbath. By the way, none of them would be able to qualify as Colin's father because that was only 2 years ago, so it hasn't been long enough for Colin to be that age. And Stanson's like, yep, that's right, call me Stanson. After Hirudin told me we were going to be under your umbrella, I knew it was fate that brought us together back then. And Luffy's like, I see. I'm glad what we did helped you. Because, like, Luffy likes helping people, but like in this case, like, they all had the slave collars on them and everything, and he was going to save Kami anyway, so all of that worked out. Yes, Luffy isn't necessarily, like, he's not going to help someone who's not willing to try to help themselves, but he also understands that, like, they all had the slave collars on them, so it would have been really hard for them to be able to fight back. As opposed to, like, at Wano, like, there was ones that were trying to fight back there. Same thing with Dressrosa and other places. Luffy is, like, he will help people who will try to help themselves. So Luffy's happy about that. And then they have, Jarl is showing up. And he's just like, are you all having fun? And they're just like, Elder Jarl is here. And Luffy's like, who's that? And Jarl gets introduced. And, Bragi is like introducing him, and he's like, Elder Jarl, you made it and everything. So we get this size comparison between like how big Jarl is and compared to how big Bragi is. So that's like a good difference in height there. And Jarl, he's changed a little bit. Since Big Mom's flashback, he now has what looks like a sword or a dagger shoved through his helmet/head. How the heck that happened, I have no idea. I'm assuming that'll get explained in a little bit. Not in this chapter, but in a future chapter, I'm assuming something will get explained by that, because Luffy and Usopp very much bring it up. Luffy very much brings it up. And then he's just like, Jarl's like, oh, looks like we have some tiny guests. Now, I want to try to point something out with Jarl. Jarl and Jarl, who were like, they were like 300 something years old during Big Mom's flashback. Now Jarl is 408. He's one of the elders of, one of the, probably the oldest living giant on Elbath, in all honesty. And he's probably like a wellspring of knowledge. in regards to stuff that could date back for quite a while. So, with Jarl and Jarl, they didn't hate humans. What happened with Big Mom's flashback was Jarl fought Big Mom when she was in her Semlaw craze, her hunger pangs for the Semlaw craze, after, during the fasting and everything. And she killed him, and then Jarl attempted to kill her, but Mother Carmel stopped him and made the deal that they would leave and she would take Big Mom with her, that she would take Lin with her. And that is what happened. The giants don't hate humans as a whole. They're not quite the same way that like Arlong is with the fishmen. With the Arlong is with humans. He doesn't hate humans as a whole. Jarl doesn't hate humans as a whole. He despised Big Mom, Lin, because of what happened happened when she was a kid. Because she's the reason his best friend is dead. So there's all of that. He doesn't have a problem with humans in general, necessarily. He may have a problem with the world government, but from everything he's heard about the Straw Hats and everything from, Oimo and Kashi and Hyrudine and Dorian Bragi, he's probably like, these Straw Hats seem good. Plus, he's probably aware of the fact that they helped take down Big Mom, which would be just like a weight off of Jarl's shoulders after so long. And Usopp is just like, that giant's built like a mountain. I'm like, yeah, well, that's part of his name, Mountain Beard Jarl, so you're on the right track there, Usopp. And Luffy is just like, hey, there's a sword in your head, Gramps. Oh, and Jarl's just like, oh, this old thing? He's just like, I'm lucky my helmet saved me. And Luffy's like, but it's going right through. Which, like, yeah, that's gonna cause brain damage. Or death. Or one leading to the other, preferably brain damage leading to death in that regard, although, I don't know. So there has to be some story there with that. Maybe someone showed up with the Op no Mi and did that to Jarl because they were angry at him or whatever, and then that was like one of the prior people to Law that had it. I don't know. That's like one of the things I'm like, technically that would work, but I don't know how. So there's that. So that's the end of this chapter. Just, oh my god, in regards to that, just wow. We got Jarl brought in a bit earlier than some of us were anticipating, I'm sure, so that's fine. We've got bits set up here. We've got the Straw Hats are kind of separated again, so we'll see how that goes for like the ones that are at the library compared to the ones that are now down in the village. We've got, Shanks's twin and the female, celestial dragon or whatever, God's Knight, are probably going to be going off to try to find Loki after they finish interrogating these giants, however that goes. It's not like the world government didn't know that was where the Straw Hats were going or that they were on their way to Elbath. They knew that was where they were headed. The giants showed up to help them, and that was the direction they headed off in. So it's not like that was like new knowledge. We didn't see the face of the one who was supposed to be like Shanks's brother or his twin or whatever you want to call him. Evil Shanks, I don't know. We didn't see his face at all in this chapter, so we'll see what happens there. I like that they did the callback to like Luffy recognizing Stanson and everything, so that's nice there. I mean, it's not like Luffy doesn't pay attention to stuff. He does. It's like he remembered about Pluton and that Frankie burned those plans way back at Enies Lobby, and he remembers Stanson here. So we'll see what happens there. I still have no freaking idea how Jarl has a sword in his head and is alive. And still, functioning well, and he's 408 years old. I'm like, okay. Yeah. I don't know what to say about that. I find that funny, but I don't know what else to say about it. So that's what we have here. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. There's one more video set to go up before the end of the year, and that will be up on Monday, I believe. It is a Disney and One Piece inspired video with Lilo and Stitch themed stuff going on. So that's what I have there. So that'll be the last one to end up this year. We got this chapter here, so we'll see what happens next. I hope you all have a very happy and safe New Year's. So.